Hi, welcome to our channel where we share the most intriguing stories. When war-hardened veteran Chris Bryan returns to his quiet cabin in the Colorado foothills, he expects peace, not a full-blown, unauthorized party thrown by the HOA queen from hell. But when lines are crossed, Chris isn't backing down. This time, the battle is on his front porch. It had been a long 2 days in Denver, and I was just looking forward to throwing my boots off and collapsing into my cabin's creaky old recliner with a cold beer and some silence. I had no reason to suspect that my property, my hard-earned peace in the Colorado foothills, had turned into a clown parade while I was gone. But the moment I turned onto the final bend of the dirt road, my stomach tightened. The first red flag was the literal flag. A massive HOA banner with red, white, and blue trimming stretched across my front gate like a damn parade float. Underneath it, balloons, dozens of them, tied to the fence posts, the mailbox, and even my mailbox sign that clearly reads private property, no trespassing. I stopped the truck right in the middle of the gravel road and blinked. My mind did that thing where it tries to process something so absurd it stalls out for a second. I rolled forward slowly, and that's when I saw the tables. Folding tables, lined with red, white, and blue tablecloths, coolers, fold-out chairs, a goddamn birthday banner strung across the front porch that read, "Happy Birthday, Lieutenant Dooley." My porch. My house. I parked fast and got out, boots crunching down on the gravel harder than usual. Voices, maybe 10, 15 people, echoed from the backyard. Someone shouted, "Can you help unload the cake?" I walked around the side path I built myself 2 summers ago and found 5 people setting up a party tent near my fire pit, like they were prepping for a wedding. 2 more were rolling out some kind of red carpet up the steps of my deck. Standing dead center, arms folded, giving out orders like she was at a military ceremony, was Karen Dooley herself, HOA president of the new development downhill. Beige sun visor, perfectly curled helmet hair, and a goddamn clipboard in her hand. "Karen," I said. Not loud, not polite. She didn't even flinch. Just turned toward me like I was some teenager returning home past curfew. "Oh, wonderful, you're here," she said. "We were getting a little worried you'd be late for setup." "Setup for what?" I asked, though I already knew I wouldn't like the answer. She gestured broadly like a magician unveiling a trick. "For the event, of course. The birthday celebration of my son, Lieutenant Mason Dooley, recently promoted and returning from active duty. A true American hero. We've reserved your space for the day, my—" "What?" Karen walked toward me with that forced smile that's never actually friendly. "This location is ideal. Nature, peace, access to the lake. I submitted a reservation request through the city website last month and got confirmation that the area was zoned for recreational community use. So here we are. HOA cleared it unanimously. We're expecting 100 guests. You reserved my property," I said slowly, like I was explaining gravity to a toddler. She tilted her head. "Well, it's unmarked land, isn't it? No fence, no signage. I mean, be honest, Chris. Have you ever even flown an American flag here? The way your place looks, no one would even think someone lives here." I looked at her like she had grown a second head. "Karen, this is my land, my house. My name is on the deed, and I don't give a flying damn whether you think it's flaggy enough. This isn't a rec center, and I sure as hell didn't give permission for a 100-person party to happen on my porch." One of the volunteers, a young guy in khakis and an HOA. Lanyard muttered something about patriotism under his breath while arranging cupcakes on a platter. Karen waved a hand. "Chris, listen, I get it. You're a veteran. My son is too. This is a celebration in the spirit of service. You should be honored we chose this location. I didn't choose anything. You trespassed. You vandalized my property. And you're going to clear every damn thing off this land in the next 5 minutes before I start hauling it into the road." Karen's smile evaporated. "You're being hostile." "I'm being calm," I said, stepping toward her, which is something I've had a lot of training in. But that ends real fast when people break into my home. She stepped back, clearly surprised I wasn't rolling over. "If you want to make this difficult, I will be forced to escalate. You're intimidating people who are here for a peaceful community celebration. You'll be hearing from the city and from law enforcement. Call them," I said. "Please. Let them come out here and explain to you why the hell none of this is legal." "Oh, I already did," she said proudly, pulling out her phone. You think I wasn't prepared? I told them you were a squatter pretending to live here. I said we had proper authorization and that you were obstructing a veterans gathering. My fists clenched. I forced a breath through my nose and said nothing. Then I turned and walked straight to my truck. I unlocked the glove box and pulled out my document binder. Deed, plat map, property tax receipts, everything. I turned back just as Karen was busy giving directions to another woman unloading paper plates from an SUV. I stood in the middle of my driveway and yelled, "Everyone, listen up. This is private property. You are all trespassing. I have not given consent for this event, nor was I notified. You have 10 minutes to clear off before you are forcibly removed by the authorities." One man scoffed. "Relax, dude. It's just a party. It's just felony trespassing," I shot back. "And believe me, you'll regret being here." Some people hesitated. Others kept unpacking. Karen yelled, "Don't be intimidated. He doesn't have authority. We're within our community rights." I checked my watch, heart thudding, not from fear, but sheer outrage. I wasn't going to wait for the sheriff. I was done waiting on people to fix my problems. If Karen wanted escalation, she was about to find out what it looked like. The first patrol car rolled up 12 minutes later, kicking up dust as it turned onto the drive. The guests didn't flinch. Karen didn't even turn her head. She was too busy explaining to someone how the hors d'oeuvres should be spaced evenly on the buffet table she had placed right over my firewood stack. 2 officers stepped out. One older, stocky, looked like he'd seen a lot of HOA complaints in his life. The other younger, not more than 25, already looked tired. They didn't even have time to unbuckle their seatbelts before Karen came marching toward them like a wind-up Karen doll on full charge. "There he is," she said, pointing at me as if I were a rabid coyote. "That's the man I told you about. He's impersonating the property owner. This space has been reserved through community outreach channels for our veterans event." I stood near the porch, arms crossed, holding my binder. The older officer looked at me, then at the porch, the house, the cars, the chaos. "This is your residence?" he asked flatly. "It is," I said. "Chris Bryan. Here's my deed. County records, map overlay, tax documents. You'll also find that I'm not, and never have been, under HOA jurisdiction. I own this land free and clear, bought through the Colorado Veterans Transition Network." I handed him the folder, which he took, and started flipping through while his partner turned toward Karen. "Ma'am, do you have any paperwork showing a rental agreement or event permit?" Karen blinked like she was just asked to recite the Pledge of Allegiance backward. "Well, not exactly," she began, "but I submitted a usage request to the Municipal Recreation Portal. This area isn't fenced, there's no signage, and by open space ordinance, I read it online. Parcels adjacent to public trails without barriers can be temporarily repurposed for community use." I raised an eyebrow. "That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. This isn't a park. This is a deeded lot with a house, power meter, mailbox, and me living in it. Since when does an open space ordinance let you throw a 100-person party on a stranger's lawn?" Karen visibly bristled. "It's not a stranger's lawn, it's, well, fine. I may have misunderstood the legal framework, but the point is, it's for my son, Lieutenant Mason Dooley, a real soldier." The officer looked back at me. "You a veteran?" "U.S. Army. Special Forces, 10 years in. Retired 2 years ago." Karen let out a snort. "So now everyone's a soldier." How convenient. The younger cop gave her a side eye that could have sliced drywall. The older one turned back to me. "Okay, mister. Brian, everything in this binder looks solid. We'll have dispatch run it through the county registry just to be sure, but assuming it checks out, and it looks like it will, they're on your land." "No kidding," I said, gesturing at the buffet line being set up on top of my potting bench. The younger officer started walking around the site, quietly counting people. "This is more than just a neighborhood potluck. Estimated guest list was around 100, I said, all coming to a house they didn't bother to ask permission to use." The older cop sighed. "All right, we're going to need to start dispersing people." Karen stepped forward like a cat about to pounce. "Excuse me, you can't just kick us out. My son is on his way. He's a lieutenant on base, and this is in his honor. We have people flying in." "Ma'am, with all due respect, you have 100 people trespassing on private property," the younger one said, "and no legal right to be here. If the owner wants you off, you're off." Karen's tone dropped to a warning whisper. "You'll regret treating veterans like this. You'll see what happens when the media finds out." I almost laughed. You mean finds out that you hijacked a veteran's house to throw a party for your son and then called the cops when the real homeowner showed up? Karen's face twitched, but she wasn't done. Not even close. I've had enough, she snapped. She pulled out her phone, turned on speaker, and dialed 911 again. 911, what's your emergency? Yes, this is Karen Dooley, she said quickly, shooting me a death glare. I'm on site at our planned veterans event, and we have a hostile squatter threatening people with violence. There's an ongoing attempt to intimidate and potentially incite a riot. I let out a sharp laugh. Oh, now I'm the riot. The two officers stiffened. The older one stepped toward Karen, voice low and tight. Ma'am, filing a false police report is a criminal offense. We are already on site and have assessed the situation. There is no threat here except the one you're manufacturing. Karen didn't care. She hung up and started pacing like a general surveying a battlefield. A few of her guests began murmuring. Someone asked quietly if they should maybe leave before things got worse. But others, the diehards, kept unloading drinks and balloons like they were storming Normandy. I looked at the officers. How do you want to handle this? Because I've got backup coming. The younger one frowned. Backup? I nodded. Old friends. Some of them in law enforcement, some with legal backgrounds. All veterans. And all of them have seen way worse than this. As if on cue, a gray Ford SUV pulled up to the gate, followed by a black pickup with veteran plates. My pulse ticked up, not with nerves, but with satisfaction. I gave Karen one last look. This is your last chance to leave peacefully. My patience is officially out. She crossed her arms, stared me down, and said, You think you've got friends. You think I'm afraid of some army boys. This is my community, and I reserved this space. I smiled, a thin, cold smile I hadn't used since Kandahar. Oh, honey. You're about to find out what a real community looks like. The first man out of the SUV was Rob, wearing a weathered sheriff's jacket with the patch still barely visible on the shoulder. He didn't walk. He advanced, slow and deliberate, the way cops do when they've seen one too many people try to talk their way out of the law. Behind him, Ben stepped out of the pickup, still in jeans and a battered, disabled Veterans of Colorado hoodie, carrying a leather briefcase like it was a weapon. Last came Anthony. Tall, silent, and not in the mood for small talk. I hadn't seen him in nearly a year, and he looked like he hadn't changed one damn bit. Clean, composed, always scanning. 10 years in Army intel will do that to you. Rob took one look at the mess and muttered, Jesus. HOA warfare again. Not even HOA, I said. This is Karen's one-woman campaign to annex my porch. Ben set down the briefcase on the hood of my truck. I've been dealing with land disputes since I got out. But this is next-level delusion. Karen approached like a predator sniffing new prey. And who are you supposed to be? Rob didn't bother responding. He flashed his old badge, technically retired, but still recognized by most of the department. Ma'am, he said evenly, we're here on behalf of Mr. Brian. We're verifying criminal trespass, unauthorized occupancy, and false representation of legal ownership, Karen scoffed. That's rich. I'm the one who called 911. Ben opened the briefcase, pulled out a copy of my property deed, zoning map, and, this was the kicker, a printed email thread from the HOA's internal board communications. Somehow, he'd gotten it. And right there in black and white was Karen's message to the rest of the board. Chris Bryan hasn't explicitly refused. I'll proceed with the setup and frame it as a veterans community event. He won't cause a scene. Trust me, Ben didn't say a word. Just handed the papers to the younger officer who started reading with a tight jaw. Karen's face drained. She reached out, trying to grab the email, but Anthony stepped forward and blocked her with nothing more than his presence. You forged an event reservation, Ben said, and claimed oral consent for a private venue that's not even in HOA jurisdiction. She straightened up, trying to collect herself. I interpreted the rules in the best interest of the community. My son is... No. Rob interrupted. You lied. You broke into a man's home and organized a mass gathering on private land. That's not patriotism. That's criminal stupidity. The crowd was splitting now. About half the guests, realizing how far this had gone, began quietly packing up. Some offered me awkward nods or mumbled apologies. One guy whispered, didn't even know this wasn't part of the HOA, before backing off toward his SUV. But others stayed. The diehards, the ones who'd follow Karen into a sinkhole if she told them it was for the flag. Karen wasn't done. She turned back toward the officers. "You can't seriously believe all this. That email proves nothing. Maybe someone forged it. Maybe he faked it. Anyone can print out messages." "Funny you say that," Anthony said, "because this came directly from the HOA's admin server. We subpoenaed logs from a case last year involving a similar boundary stunt she pulled. Guess what showed up when I cross-referenced dates?" Karen froze. 3 prior emails, Anthony continued, where she tried the same tactic on a neighbor with a garden shed, said it was common use storage space, and had it torn down. She paid a private contractor in cash. The older officer lowered the papers slowly. "Ma'am, we're going to need you to step away from the property and remain available for further questioning. We may be looking at a pattern." "I'm not going anywhere," Karen barked. "You think I'm going to let some survivalist hermit and his PTSD crew run me off this land?" Rob stepped forward, calm but solid. "Karen, I suggest you stop talking." That's when the crowd stirred again. A silver truck, windows down, pulled in. At the wheel, a young man in uniform, army dress, stepped out. Lieutenant Mason Dooley. The entire backyard seemed to freeze. People straightened up, adjusted shirts, cleared throats. "Mason!" Karen shouted, suddenly bright and animated, like none of this had happened. "Sweetheart, you're just in time. We were setting up your—" "I got your message," he interrupted. "And then I got the second one." He looked at me, nodded. "You must be Chris." "I'm sorry about this," Karen blinked. "Message? What second message? What are you talking about?" Mason held up his phone. "Your email to the HOA, and then your other one. To your friend Lisa, where you said, quote, 'Chris won't know what hit him.' You CC'd me by mistake." Twice Karen's mouth moved, but no sound came out. "I left base early to stop this mess before it got worse," he said. "Too late, I guess." Karen tried to step forward. "Mason," he raised a hand. "No. I came here thinking we were honoring service. Turns out you're using mine as a weapon against someone who actually fought." Then he turned to me again. "Sir, I don't know you, but I respect you. And I'm sorry my name was used in this insanity." I nodded. "You're not the one who needs to apologize." Karen stood alone now. The crowd was melting. Even her core group was retreating to cars, mumbling about needing to get back home. I turned to Rob. "Think it's time we drew the line." He cracked his knuckles. "Let's make it legal." The thing about crowds, they vanish fast when something real goes down. By the time Mason turned away from his mother, only a few stubborn faces remained in the backyard, arms crossed, watching like they were hoping this would somehow turn back in her favor. Karen stood frozen, fists clenched, as if sheer willpower could glue the party back together. She spun toward me, eyes blazing. "You think you've won something here?" "I haven't won anything," I said calmly. "You just lost the one thing you thought you controlled, the narrative." "You don't belong here," she screamed, stepping closer. "You're a reclusive, paranoid old man squatting on land that could serve this community. You should be thanking me for even involving you." Rob shifted, hand low on his belt. "Back it up, Karen." But she didn't. She charged forward, shoving a folding chair out of her way, heels sinking into my gravel as she stomped toward me. I didn't flinch. Not because I'm fearless. I've seen what fear does to people. I just knew this wasn't about me anymore. She was unraveling in front of her son, her neighbors, and 2 cops. "You're destroying my son's reputation," she hissed, pointing a finger an inch from my chest. Mason stepped between us. "Mom, stop. Right now. You stay out of this," she snapped. "You don't know what I've sacrificed." Ben pulled out his phone, started filming. That's when she lunged. It wasn't graceful or planned. It was the kind of reckless, instinctive attack that comes from months, maybe years, of pent-up entitlement not getting its way. She grabbed at the collar of my jacket, screaming something unintelligible, and tried to shove me backward. Except I didn't move. I'm 6'2" and built like the logs this cabin was made from. She bounced off me like a raccoon off a trash can. 2 things happened at once. Rob moved in with the speed of muscle memory, restraining her arms, and the younger officer radioed in a code for assault on a civilian. Karen was screaming now, completely unhinged, flailing, red-faced. "I'll have your property seized. You'll regret this. My lawyer will bury you. You think this is over?" Anthony stood back, quiet as ever, watching with the focus of someone documenting a case file in his head. Ben didn't stop filming. Neither did one of the neighbors who had reappeared, phone held sideways, catching every second. "I warned you," I muttered, watching her being handcuffed. The officer read her rights as Rob held her steady. She kicked once, caught nothing, then finally sagged when she realized no one was coming to her defense. Even the diehards had turned away. A woman in tennis shoes muttered, "We didn't know she wasn't allowed," as she climbed into a Lexus and peeled off. Mason didn't move. He just stared, jaw tight, like a man trying to calculate how long it would take to undo this damage. "I'm sorry," he said again. "I'll cooperate however you need me to." I nodded. "Appreciated." The younger officer approached me next, clipboard in hand. "Mr. Bryan, we'll need your formal statement, photos of any damage, and confirmation of ownership. We'll open the file as criminal trespass, vandalism, and misdemeanor assault for now. More may be added depending on the emails." Ben held up the documents again. "He's got all that ready." Rob added, "And if she tries to pull strings, I still have friends on the bench." This won't disappear. They loaded Karen into the patrol car, still sputtering threats, now reduced to pathetic curses under her breath. I didn't gloat. I've seen what real consequences do to people who believe they're above them. When the car door slammed shut, silence fell over the property. Anthony finally spoke. "This isn't over. She'll lawyer up and try to flip the script. I'm counting on it," I said. Because now I had what I needed: witnesses, video, evidence of prior intent, and a police report tied directly to her name. She came for a celebration and walked away in cuffs. And I wasn't done with her. The next 48 hours were a whirlwind of paperwork, statements, and legal consultation. You'd think that after a woman was dragged off your porch in handcuffs for assault, the case would be open and shut. But this was Karen we were dealing with. And Karen never surrenders, she regroups. By Monday morning, I'd already filed a formal restraining order, submitted all the videos and emails to the county DA, and had Ben draft up a civil complaint for trespassing, defamation, and attempted fraud. Rob walked me through the criminal side, and Anthony started digging into public records. Turns out this wasn't Karen's first creative interpretation of land boundaries. While the HOA had been relatively clean on the surface, she'd been involved in 3 prior complaints, all settled quietly. One neighbor had been convinced to donate their patio for community use. Another had their mailbox moved 20 feet onto HOA turf after Karen revised the boundary map. None of them fought it. Until now. Ben handed me a stack of documents thicker than a phone book. "This is your leverage." Every piece of her past conduct paints a pattern. And that's golden court. That same afternoon, a Mercedes SUV showed up at the end of my driveway. Not Karen, but a man in a tailored suit with a practiced smile. "Mr. Bryan," he asked, approaching casually. "I represent Miss Lindholm. I'd like to discuss a possible settlement." Off the record, off the record? I raised an eyebrow. "You mean hush money?" He chuckled, like I'd just misunderstood a basic concept of law. "Let's not be so harsh. My client believes this has all escalated beyond reason. She's willing to issue a formal apology and pay for any minor damages if you agree to withdraw your complaints." "How generous," I said, deadpan. "And if I refuse?" "Well," he flipped through his leather folder. "My client is also considering filing a counterclaim for emotional distress. She alleges you threatened her with firearms and created a hostile environment. There are witnesses." I didn't even blink. "Let me guess. Those witnesses' names end with HOA board member titles?" "She simply wants a resolution that avoids dragging everyone through court." I smiled. "That ship's already sunk. And you just gave me the transcript for how she's going to try and twist it." He shifted uncomfortably. "Mr. Bryan." Ben stepped outside right then, phone in hand. "Chris, the clerk just called back. The county has assigned Judge Parrish to your filing." The lawyer visibly tensed. "Judge Parrish?" "Yeah," I said. "Old school, served in the Marines, doesn't appreciate people lying under oath. Now, unless you're here to return stolen patio furniture and hand me Karen's written confession, you should leave." He adjusted his collar and walked off, tight-lipped. Anthony appeared a few minutes later with a flash drive. "Got access logs. Her phone pinged cell towers around your place for 10 separate nights last month. She was casing the place." I stared at him. "You're saying she'd been watching the property before she pulled this stunt?" "Absolutely," he nodded. "And I pulled footage from a neighbor's motion camera. There's a clip of her walking through your lot with a measuring wheel." I laughed. "She was planning it like a land invasion. She mapped your yard like it was hers. We filed everything. The police report Anthony's findings, Ben's compiled legal documentation, and by the end of the day, the county clerk had stamped a full civil suit against Karen Lindholm backed by evidence, timeline, and testimony. She thought she was playing politics, but I was playing endgame. I woke up Wednesday morning to find a county zoning inspector standing at the edge of my driveway. Clipboard, safety vest. That look bureaucrats wear when they know they're about to ruin someone's day. Or think they are. "You Chris Bryan?" he asked. "Yep." "Got a report of unauthorized grading and structural modifications on this property." I stared at him. "Grading? You mean the gravel path I've had for 10 years? Neighbors say you recently expanded it, possibly infringing on protected soil." I almost laughed. "Protected from what? We're in the middle of goddamn nowhere." He didn't look amused. "I'll need to inspect the grounds." "Got a warrant?" "No, but you can voluntarily allow—" I cut him off. "Come back with a warrant." He frowned and walked off, clearly annoyed. I texted Rob. 10 minutes later, I got a call back from the county office. The report had been filed by Karen Lindholm using a fake return address and a burner number. Classic. Her last act of desperation: throw as much garbage at the wall as possible and hope something sticks. By noon, I was on the phone with a local news station. See, Karen thought she controlled the narrative. But now that there were public records, police involvement, and neighbors whispering behind her back, I decided to go public. I gave the reporter a full breakdown. Footage, documents, HOA abuse patterns, her previous incidents, and how she'd tried to commandeer private property for personal events. I didn't embellish a word. I didn't need to. The facts were radioactive on their own. Later that day, Anthony knocked on my door with a USB stick and a grin. Guess what I found? "Tell me." "A microphone." I blinked. "What?" "In your fence post. West corner, buried in the beam cap. I scanned your property after the inspector showed up." I stared. "She bugged my fence?" "Looks like it. And not just that. There's Bluetooth access logs that pinged from her house." That was it. We filed a supplemental criminal report immediately, this time under unauthorized surveillance and invasion of privacy. Rob called in a friend from the sheriff's office. The minute they confirmed the device was live and linked to Karen's address, they executed a search warrant for her house. And, what do you know? Not only did they find a router configured for remote listening, but also printouts of my property layout with handwritten notes like "ideal for stage" and "lounge seating." She wasn't just aggressive, she was engineering this takeover. But the final blow came not from me, or the cops, or even Rob. It came from Mason, her own son. He showed up on my doorstep late that evening. No suit this time, just a hoodie and jeans, looking like a man who'd aged 10 years in a week. "I want to testify," he said. "I've read the restraining order, the filings." I didn't know she'd gone this far. I thought she was just being overzealous. She's always been like that. But microphones, lies to the police? That's not just HOA stuff. That's criminal. I nodded slowly. "You sure?" "Yeah, she threatened me too. Said if I don't publicly defend her, I'm no longer her son." That's when I knew Ben took his affidavit the next day. We now had an eyewitness statement from her own family. The DA called it the nail in the coffin. The courthouse smelled like floor wax and regret. Karen strutted in wearing a beige suit 2 sizes too tight and sunglasses like she was shielding herself from paparazzi. She had 3 people with her, 2 HOA board members, and the same smug lawyer who tried to threaten me days earlier. I was there with Ben, Rob, and Mason. Anthony showed up late, holding a laptop and a portable projector. It was about to be a show. The judge, a firm-looking woman named Parrish, wasted no time. "Mr. Bryan, you are requesting a restraining order, damages for trespassing, harassment, and defamation, and you've filed supplemental criminal complaints. Is that correct?" "Yes, ma'am." "And Ms. Lindholm, your response." Karen's lawyer stood. "We categorically deny the allegations and intend to prove that Mr. Bryan fabricated much of the evidence in retaliation for HOA enforcement." The judge looked over her glasses. "Your client filed a police report stating she was invited onto the property, yet we have text messages and videos contradicting that. Choose wisely." He sat down slowly. We opened with the drone footage of Karen pacing around my property days before the incident. Then came the body cam footage of her arrest, the audio recording she didn't know we had, and finally Mason's affidavit, read aloud by Ben. Karen visibly recoiled when her son's words were spoken. "My mother believes rules don't apply to her." I watched her lie to my face, and I watched her try to destroy a man's life for telling her no. The judge called a recess. Karen stormed into the hallway, shouting at her lawyer. "You said this would be shut down before court. You promised. You didn't tell me there were microphones, Karen." "Of course I didn't," she shrieked. "You're my lawyer, not my priest." Reporters were already outside, snapping photos. By the time the afternoon session began, the courtroom was half full with HOA members, neighbors, and curious onlookers. Rob had already spoken to the sheriff's office. They were preparing formal charges based on the surveillance device and Anthony's findings. But then came the twist. Anthony connected his laptop and pulled up a spreadsheet. "This," he said, "is a breakdown of discretionary expenses filed under HOA maintenance costs over the last 8 months. He highlighted a line, $4,000, event chairs, billed to the HOA, delivered to Karen's home address. The judge blinked. "Are you alleging misappropriation of HOA funds?" Anthony nodded. "And it's not the only one." He clicked to the next tab. Gift baskets, catering orders, stage equipment, all billed to the HOA, all shipped to private addresses linked to Karen or her family. Karen's lawyer stood up mid-sentence, asked for a sidebar, and requested withdrawal as counsel. The judge raised an eyebrow but allowed it. Karen was left standing alone at the defense table, mouth dry, face pale. "This isn't about a party," the judge said. "It's about theft. It's about abuse of power. And it's about to become a criminal matter." Karen opened her mouth, but no words came. I didn't need to say anything else. The silence did it for me. It didn't take long. By Friday morning, Karen was formally charged with trespassing, harassment, wiretapping, misuse of HOA funds, and filing false police reports. They arrested her in her driveway, still wearing the same beige suit from court, like she never left the battlefield. Footage of the arrest made it onto the local news that evening. The headline, "HOA president faces multiple felonies in property scandal." It was over, but I wasn't done. The sheriff's office asked if I wanted to press civil charges on top of the criminal case. I said yes. Rob and Ben handled the filings. Full reimbursement for legal fees, restitution for property interference, a separate claim for emotional distress due to the surveillance and targeted defamation. Karen tried to claim temporary insanity. The court didn't buy it. She was sentenced to 10 years in state prison, with no chance of early release for the first 4. The judge called her behavior a gross violation of personal liberty under the illusion of community interest. Her HOA obliterated. The board voted to dissolve the current leadership, and more than half the residents petitioned to either restructure the association or leave it entirely. A new temporary president was appointed, and guess who? Anthony. They begged him to take it over and clean it up. He accepted, under one condition, that my cabin, my land, and everything within my fences would be legally excluded from all current and future HOA jurisdiction, signed and notarized, and Mason. He moved into a small apartment nearby. We still talk. He's rebuilding, slowly, and working a quiet job teaching mechanics at the local high school. As for me, I spent that Sunday morning drinking coffee on the deck of my cabin, watching the trees sway in the breeze, with my rifle leaning lazily against the railing and a brand new private property, no HOA sign staked in the dirt. I didn't hear from anyone all day, and that was just the way I liked it.